Before I get into this, I want to say that I don't usually watch videos on YouTube that are in my niche. I don't find it that interesting since I'm doing the same thing pretty much. But sometimes a video pops up in suggested section and I feel like checking it out. And this was the case for Rick's video here. I am not a regular viewer of Rick Beato, but I am subscribed to him. So I have seen some of his stuff and it's pretty good in general, so I have nothing personal against Rick. But this one video, man, no, I disagree in so many ways. And before you click away, just hear me out. I know that the point Rick and Dave Grohl were making is not about how the music sounds. I know it's more about the impact of their music, but it's a complicated topic which Rick kinda looked at on a very surface level. So let me get a little deeper into this and explain as to why I disagree with Rick. First of all, because the title of his video is a supposed quote by Dave Grohl, but I could not find it. What Dave said about Billie Eilish and Nirvana is quite different, but I will get into details shortly. By the way, if you do find this exact quote by Dave, please do post the source down below, but I find it hard to believe that Dave would say these exact words. So my video is about a little more than just Rick Beato making this video, which I happen to disagree with, because there is a bigger problem and narrative happening in the rock world in recent years. I am getting tired of people of relative influence here on YouTube trying to find rock stars in rappers and pop artists. Frankly, I don't see the point in that. Rock is rock, pop is pop, etc. Yes, the boundaries of genres have become very blurry and everything has become interconnected in some way. But the spirit of rock is very different. I don't think of rock when I hear Billie Eilish or Machine Gun Kelly. The feeling and emotion I get from either of them is very different than that of, let's say, Nirvana. Even though I understand why Dave Grohl was compelled to compare Billie to Nirvana, first I need to put things in proper context, because Rick kinda took it out of the context. So here's what actually happened. Dave went to see a live Billie Eilish show in 2019. He went there with his daughters and saw that they had the same connection with Eilish that Nirvana fans had with Nirvana back in '91. He also said, and this is a quote, "Her music is hard to define. I don't know what you call it. I try to describe her to people and I don't know. I don't even know what to call it. But it's authentic, and I would call that rock and roll. So I don't care what sort of instruments you use to do it. When I look at someone like Billie Eilish, I'm like, shit man, rock and roll is not even close to being dead." I'm not going to go too deep into detail on Dave's comment, but I'll say that I understand his point of view in a sense that it's not about what instruments an artist plays, it's about being authentic and fans having a connection with the artist. But being authentic and connecting with the listener is not exclusive to rock, because by that logic no other genre or musician is authentic. And to top it off, you don't really need to be authentic to have a connection with your listener. We know that there are plenty of artists who don't write their own songs but have very loyal fan bases who have a connection with the artist regardless. Rock is not even close to being dead, not because of Billie Eilish, but because there is still good rock music out there if you look for it. And just because it's not always on the top 10s or not playing on mainstream radio does not mean that rock is dead. We have old bands still around, we have new artists constantly coming out, and recently we've been having this resurgence of older bands that were broken up but are now getting back together and making new music. And all of this has nothing to do with Billie Eilish. As for the title of Rick's video, I'd say it's just clickbait, pure and simple. He made such surface level comparisons between Billie and Kurt, which I find kinda surprising since Rick is so well versed in rock music especially. And a lot of people seem to agree with him, which is even worse. But I must say that this video has more dislikes than his usual uploads, so I am glad some people seem to agree with my point of view. Before I continue, I would like to mention that I do like quite a bit of music by Billie Eilish, and I honestly think that she's probably one of the best new artists of the last decade. So I have no distaste towards her as an artist or a person for that matter. So I am covering this in the most objective way I possibly can. And important to mention, anything I say from here on out about Kurt and Billy is based on what I have read in books or watched in documentaries over the years. So I make points based on what is public knowledge. So here are some similarities Rick found between the two artists. They both wear baggy clothes, write lyrics about alienation, they are both rebellious, they are both a voice of their generation, they both write their own music. Okay, let's talk about all of that. For the most part, I think all these comparisons don't apply to them in the same way. First of all, because time Billy exists in and Kurt existed in are very different. But let's take it point by point. When it comes to Kurt, we know that for the most part, he didn't give a damn what he was wearing. He was of a punk state of mind and wore what he had, just as most of other musicians who surrounded him. The fact that Kurt became an unlikely fashion icon was out of his control. Of course, he did experiment with his clothing style, hair color and all that, but that's something most people go through when they are young. I know I did. Kurt just happened to be in a spotlight. Grunge movement overall became more than just music, it became a part of pop culture, and in large it was thanks to Kurt Cobain, Nevermind, and of course, Smells Like Teen Spirit. Of course, there were other great grunge bands, but I think we have to admit that Nirvana was the most commercially and radio-friendly, and without them, the fate of grunge would probably be quite different. As for Billie Eilish, in terms of her style, yes, she was not wearing very revealing or sexy clothing like most of her contemporaries, with the exception of this recent photoshoot, but I think that's an isolated incident, so I will not go too deep into that. But throughout her career, she very deliberately wore brand names and worked with famous fashion brands. She's very much involved in the fashion world because of her own attraction to it. So they both had very different motivations when it came to their styles. There seems to be one similarity though, which is they both wore baggy clothes because they had some insecurities about their bodies. Well, this is something that is very popular to say about grunge overall, but I think that Kurt's lyrics had more to offer than just that. He had some rebellion and anti-establishment tones to his lyrics too. Again, he had a very punk state of mind. Also important to note that when grunge was on the rise, they actually did something new. Coming just off the heels of hair metal, grunge really changed the tone of rock scene to a more sincere one. Grunge became a movement that was not afraid to openly address internal struggles instead of singing about parties, sex and drugs like hair metal did. So grunge kinda did break new ground in that regard. At the very least, they brought these elements of sincerity in rock music into the spotlight. While Billie also writes about alienation among other things, she is just following a path made a couple decades ago by Nirvana and many other artists along the way. She's not breaking any new ground in this regard. Besides, it's trendy to be edgy, rebellious, dark and moody these days. It's what many artists do, even if it's out of character. In terms of fame, I don't think it's quite the same for Billie today as it was for Nirvana in the 90s. I think that grunge managed to go way beyond their genre and introduced many new people to rock music. Nirvana is universally acknowledged as one of the most important bands in music history overall, even outside of rock. When it comes to Billie, we can safely say that she did not start a movement that changed the course of music's history. On top of that, I think that her music is very much an acquired taste. Thus, it has a far smaller reach than Nirvana did and still does. For the record, I do like some of Billie's music. I think some of her darker stuff is really well written, while the other half I find rather bland. Since I have a diverse taste in music and like both Nirvana and Billie Eilish, but for very different reasons, I think I can objectively say that Billie's music is directed at a very specific demographic, mostly Gen Z. But when it comes to Nirvana, they were very good at writing accessible material, which made their audience much larger than that of Billie's. In fact, Nevermind appealed to so many mainstream fans that Nirvana intentionally made their follow-up In Utero much more polarizing in order to get rid of some of that mainstream audience. Okay, we know that Kurt wrote most, if not all, songs for Nirvana, including the lyrics. In case of Billie, she writes with her brother, Finneas, as Rick Beato also mentioned. But Finneas is the main songwriter and producer. Billie went on record several times that she loves to sing and perform, but she doesn't even like to write that much. While for Kurt, writing was his second nature. But yes, I agree that Billie does not need a bunch of producers and songwriters to write material for her. She produced all her music with her brother at home. But here's the thing, it's very common these days. It doesn't make you a rock artist if you write your own music. Have you heard of cloud rappers, for example? Yeah, all of them produced their own stuff or worked with some beatmakers. These days, virtually anyone has the opportunity to produce music of decent quality from the comfort of their home. So again, this comparison is kind of pointless and in this day and age is not exclusive to Billie Eilish. This criticism of musicians not writing their own material is really outdated and out of touch with what is happening in the modern music world. Yes, there are artists who don't write their own material, but it's not really frowned upon anymore and nobody really hides these facts. And finally, let's address the elephant in the room. They are both a voice of their generation. I am not going to take away any credit from Billie Eilish because I believe that she may very well connect with her fans on the same level as Nirvana fans did back in the day. But here's the thing, when Nirvana was around, teenagers had no way of being heard. There was no internet, there was no social media, there was no Google to tell you what to do if your pinky hurts. In the 90s, there was a need for somebody to be the voice of a generation, and Kurt filled that role. He spoke up for the angsty, misunderstood, mistreated teenagers and young adults of the 90s. Today, kids are born with smartphones, which gives them the opportunity to be heard literally by millions of people with a push of a button. Does it mean everyone gets heard? Of course not. But all the tools are there. There are kids who literally, without exaggeration, are not only heard by millions, but who also become millionaires overnight by doing some stupid dance videos on TikTok. In this regard, differences between Generation X, Millennials, and Generation Z are quite significant. And you know, Kurt was so much more than just Nirvana. He became a fascination for many who don't even like Nirvana because of how his life played out. I am in fact one of those people. Many years before I truly began to appreciate Nirvana, I have always been fascinated by life story of Kurt Cobain. And luckily for Billie, to our knowledge, her life is the farthest thing from life of Kurt Cobain, who had a troubled childhood, difficulties with his parents, drug abuse and tragic passing. Billie's success at such an early age was in many ways possible thanks to her family, who have provided her with the opportunity to be creative and express herself through music. So her path to success was very different from that of Kurt's. So comparing Billie to Nirvana, I can understand to some degree, which is something that Dave Grohl did. But comparing Billie to Kurt Cobain, which is something that Rick Beato did, is just insane in my opinion. Billie Eilish is Billie Eilish of this generation, and there will always be one Billie Eilish, and there will always be one Kurt Cobain. Don't assign these labels to modern artists, labels that are impossible to follow. What Nirvana did was possible not only because Nirvana was a good band with a very unique frontman, it had a lot to do with timing, and times are very different now. From the way things are happening in music today, it's unlikely to play out the way it did in the early 90s. And you know, Billie may very well reach the levels of notoriety similar to Kurt's as her career progresses, but at this point it's just too early to make these loud statements. Billie is yet to write her Smells Like Teen Spirit. In the end, only time will tell. Thank you if you had the patience to watch the video in its entirety. If you liked it, you can drop a like. If you hated it, drop a dislike. It's fine. And if this content happens to be your cup of tea, you can check out some of my other videos here. This video is a little bit different from what I usually make, but if you liked it, you can subscribe, ring the bell, and make sure you press on all to make sure you get notifications when I actually upload new content. Thanks for your time and take care.